the invisible mechanism shaping reality. Have you ever wondered why two people can live in the same city, face the same economy, even share similar childhoods, yet one life opens like a doorway and the other feels like a locked room? If reality were only external, that wouldn't make sense. So, what's the hidden variable? In quantum physics, observation is not a passive act. Measurement selects outcomes from a field of possibilities. Now, here's the question most people never ask. What if your identity is the deepest form of measurement? You perform all day long, silently, automatically, without realizing it? Because there is an invisible mechanism shaping your results, and it doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to what you consistently embody. But how do you detect it before it writes another chapter of your life? Why identical conditions create completely different lives? Look closely at the world around you. Two people graduate from the same school. Two entrepreneurs launch businesses in the same market. Two couples face the same challenges. And yet, their outcomes diverge dramatically.
Why?
If strategy, effort, or luck were the decisive forces, these differences would be rare. But they are everywhere. Physics offers a clue. In quantum systems, identical environments do not guarantee identical results. What matters is the internal state of the system interacting with the field. Human beings are no different. Your internal state, your assumptions about who you are, what is possible for you, and what life does to you filters reality before you ever experience it. So, ask yourself, when opportunity appears, do you perceive it as natural or suspicious? When resistance shows up, do you interpret it as feedback or as proof you should stop? These interpretations are not reactions, they are projections. And they quietly decide which version of reality you are allowed to live in. If this perspective is already shifting how you see your life, subscribe to the channel. Like this video so more people can access this knowledge. Stay with us. This is only the beginning. You are not living in the world you think you are. Most people believe they live in an objective external world, one that exists independently of them. But physics and lived experience tell a very different story. You are not interacting with reality directly. You are interacting with your interpretation of it. And that interpretation is shaped long before events unfold. Every perception you have passes through an internal lens. Your self-image, your expectations, your emotional memory, your unconscious beliefs. This is why the same event can feel like an opportunity to one person and a threat to another. The event did not change. The internal world did. So here is the uncomfortable question. If your external life feels heavy, limited, or repetitive, what kind of internal world is projecting it? Because you do not live in the job, the relationship, or the bank account. You live inside the meaning you assign to them. And that meaning quietly dictates how reality responds next. The moment you understand this, you stop trying to escape the world. You begin to rewrite the place where the world is being generated. The principle of the mirror that governs all experience. There is a universal principle operating beneath every event in your life, whether you are aware of it or not. It is not mystical, and it is not moral. It does not reward or punish. It reflects. Reality functions as a mirror, not of your words, not of your hopes, but of your deepest assumptions about who you are. This is why repeating affirmations without inner alignment rarely changes anything. The mirror does not respond to what you say you believe. It responds to what you assume to be true when no one is watching. Your identity, your sense of "this is how life treats someone like me," is what stands before the mirror every day. Ask yourself honestly, When something good happens, do you feel relaxed or surprised? When something goes wrong, do you feel curious or confirmed? Those reactions reveal what the mirror is actually reflecting. Once you see this mechanism, a powerful realization emerges. You are not trapped by circumstances. You are standing in front of a mirror that has been faithfully responding to you all along. Why the mirror ignores your desires and responds to belief. Here is one of the most misunderstood truths about reality creation. The mirror does not care what you want. It does not respond to goals, vision boards, or spoken affirmations on their own. It responds only to what you expect, deeply, quietly, and consistently. In physics, a system collapses into a specific outcome based on its underlying state, not on external instructions. In the same way, reality organizes itself around your core convictions. If you desire abundance, but carry an internal certainty that life is a struggle, the mirror will always validate the struggle. Not because it is cruel, but because it is precise. This is why effort often feels exhausting for some people and effortless for others. One is trying to override the mirror. The other is cooperating with it. So the real question is not, what do I want to attract? The real question is, what feels normal, inevitable, and true for someone like me? Until belief changes, desire remains noise. And the mirror keeps reflecting the signal it recognizes. You do not live in the external world. This may sound unsettling at first, but it is one of the most liberating realizations you can have. You are not living in the external world. You are living inside your internal representation of it. What you call reality is filtered, shaped, and organized by your beliefs before you ever experience it. Neuroscience confirms that the brain does not record events objectively. It predicts, interprets, and fills in gaps based on prior assumptions. Quantum theory echoes this idea. Observation does not reveal reality. It participates in creating it. Together, they point to the same conclusion. The world you experience is not the world as it is, but the world as it makes sense to you. This explains why changing environments rarely changes lives. A new city, a new job, or a new relationship often reproduces the same emotional patterns. The location changed. The internal world did not. So, ask yourself, if your inner landscape remained exactly as it is today, how different could your external life truly become? Unwanted results are not failures. They are signals. When life delivers outcomes you did not want, financial pressure, repeated relationship patterns, stalled progress, the instinct is to search for external causes. The market changed. People disappointed you. Timing was wrong. But what if these explanations are distractions? In physics, feedback is information. A system's output reveals its internal configuration. Reality works the same way. Unwanted results are not punishments or proof of inadequacy. They are signals pointing directly to a mismatch between your inner identity and what you are trying to experience. If effort increases, but results remain the same, the problem is not intensity. It is alignment. You may be acting like someone who wants change while still being someone who expects limitation. And the mirror cannot split its response. This is where most people grow uncomfortable because it removes the comfort of blame. Yet it also restores power. If results are signals, then every outcome, pleasant or painful, is guidance. The question is no longer, why did this happen to me? But, what belief is this outcome faithfully reflecting? Why most people try to fix the reflection instead of the source. When something in life feels broken, the natural impulse is to repair what is visible. More effort, better strategies, new techniques, different people. Most human behavior is an attempt to polish the mirror rather than question what is standing in front of it. This is why so many self-improvement efforts produce temporary change at best. You can force new habits, discipline new behaviors, or chase better opportunities. But if the underlying identity remains untouched, the reflection eventually reverts. The mirror always wins because it is not responding to action. It is responding to self-image. Consider this carefully. Two people can take the same action, but the internal meaning behind that action is different. One acts from certainty. The other acts from compensation. The mirror responds accordingly. This is the great inversion most people never see. They ask, "What should I do differently?" when the real question is, "Who am I being while I do this?" Until that question is answered, change remains mechanical, and mechanical change never rewrites reality for long. Real change begins with who stands before the mirror. At some point, every genuine transformation reaches the same crossroads. You realize that nothing outside you needs to change first. The only thing that must shift is who is standing before the mirror. This is where most people hesitate because identity feels permanent, even when it isn't. In physics, when the internal parameters of a system change, its outputs must eventually reorganize. Reality has no choice. The same principle applies to you. When your self-concept evolves, when your internal "this is who I am" quietly upgrades, the reflection cannot remain the same forever. It may lag, but it cannot resist. This is why forcing outcomes feels heavy, while aligned change feels inevitable. One is an attempt to control effects. The other is a change at the cause level. Ask yourself, if your identity shifted today, subtly but genuinely, what would no longer feel like a struggle? What would stop requiring proof? The mirror is not moved by urgency or pressure. It responds to presence. And the moment your identity stabilizes at a new level, reality begins the slow, precise work of catching up. The mirror reflects frequency, not judgment. One of the most freeing truths you can understand about reality is this: the mirror does not judge you. It does not label beliefs as good or bad, positive or negative, spiritual or unworthy. It simply reflects frequency. Whatever state you consistently occupy becomes the pattern reality organizes around. In physics, resonance occurs when a system responds only to compatible frequencies. Reality behaves in the same neutral way. If you carry a frequency of struggle, vigilance, or self-doubt, life does not punish you for it, it synchronizes with it. And if you carry a frequency of trust, expectation, and internal stability, reality aligns just as precisely. This explains why guilt, self-criticism, or forced positivity never produce lasting change. They are still frequencies of tension. The mirror does not hear your moral arguments. It responds to your emotional baseline. So ask yourself honestly, what state feels most familiar to you? Calm or urgency? Trust or anticipation of disappointment? That familiarity is the frequency you're transmitting. And the mirror, without opinion, is already responding. Understanding this removes shame and replaces it with responsibility. How beliefs create self-confirming loops. Once a belief is installed at the identity level, it begins to organize reality in a very specific way. Not all at once, and not dramatically, but persistently. This is how self-confirming loops are born. A belief shapes perception. Perception influences behavior. Behavior creates outcomes. And those outcomes are then used as evidence that the original belief was correct. This is not psychological weakness. It is how systems stabilize. In physics, feedback loops maintain coherence. In human experience, they maintain identity. If someone believes they are unlucky, the mind becomes alert to setbacks and blind to neutral or positive signals. If someone believes success is unnatural for them, opportunities feel suspicious or temporary. The most dangerous part of these loops is that they feel objective. They appear to be just how life is. But they are not descriptions of reality. They are reinforcements of identity. So, the critical question becomes, which loop are you currently feeding? And more importantly, what would happen if you stopped using yesterday's outcomes as proof of who you are today? When inner transformation turns the mirror into an ally, there is a moment in every conscious transformation where reality stops feeling like resistance and starts behaving like cooperation. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because the mirror has a new reference point. When inner identity evolves, the mirror does not argue, it amplifies. This is why people who undergo genuine inner shifts often describe life as flowing again. Opportunities appear without force. Help arrives without begging. Timing improves without manipulation. None of this is magic. It is alignment. The system is no longer correcting for contradiction. In physics, when coherence increases, energy loss decreases. In human terms, when your inner assumptions match what you are moving toward, friction dissolves. You stop leaking energy through doubt and internal conflict. But here is the subtlety most people miss. The mirror becomes an ally only after identity stabilizes. Early signs are quiet, small confirmations, gentle openings, unexpected ease. Many overlook them because they expect drama. So, ask yourself, are you demanding proof before alignment or recognizing alignment as proof? The answer determines whether the mirror remains neutral or begins to collaborate. The 4 principles that separate observers from creators. If reality truly reflects identity, then why do only a few people seem able to reshape their lives consistently? The answer is not intelligence, privilege, or discipline. It is mastery of a small set of foundational principles that most people never practice long enough to internalize. These individuals are not reacting to life, they are authoring it. And they do so by aligning with 4 core principles that govern conscious reality creation. Not techniques, not rituals, principles. Each one addresses a different failure point where most people collapse back into old patterns. Without these principles, insight fades into motivation, and motivation fades into repetition. With them, change becomes structural. Identity reorganizes. The mirror recalibrates. What makes these principles powerful is their simplicity and their difficulty. They demand consistency over emotion, presence over urgency, and authorship over comfort. This is where the path divides. One side continues observing life, interpreting outcomes, explaining circumstances. The other begins creating the next reflection deliberately. In the next topics, we will break these principles down one by one. And you may discover exactly where your own transformation has been pausing. Secret 1. Conscious identity projection. The first principle separates creators from everyone else at the very beginning of the process. It is called conscious identity projection. Most people allow their identity to be defined by circumstances. Income defines worth. Past experiences define limits, and current results define expectations. Creators reverse this order. In physics, a system's output follows its initial conditions. In life, identity is the initial condition. Conscious identity projection means deciding who you are before reality confirms it and remaining anchored there. This is not pretending or fantasizing. It is choosing the internal reference point from which you perceive, decide, and respond. Ask yourself, when something unexpected happens, who do you default to being? Someone who adapts? Someone who braces? Someone who waits for permission? That default reveals your projected identity. Creators do something radical. They do not ask, what does this situation mean about me? They ask, how would the version of me I am becoming interpret this? And then they respond from that position calmly, consistently, without theatrics. This is where the mirror begins to receive a new signal, not through words, but through embodied presence. Identity always comes before action and results. Most people approach change by asking the wrong question. They ask, what do I want? And then rush into action, hoping results will reshape how they feel about themselves. But in every system governed by cause and effect, this order is reversed. Identity always comes first. In quantum physics, outcomes emerge from the state of the system, not from the effort applied to it. Human experience follows the same logic. If your identity says, I am someone who struggles, then even inspired action will carry tension. If your identity says, I am someone for whom things work out, action feels clean, precise, and effective. This is why two people can take identical steps and produce radically different results. One is acting in alignment with identity. The other is acting in contradiction to it. And contradiction always leaks energy. So, shift the question. Instead of asking what you want to achieve, ask who must stand in the mirror for that achievement to feel natural. What beliefs would that version of you no longer argue with? What reactions would quietly disappear? When identity aligns, action stops being force. Results stop being chased. They become consequences. Why the new identity must be lived now, not later. One of the most subtle traps in transformation is postponement. Many people intellectually accept a new identity, but they place it in the future. I will be confident when things improve. I will trust myself once I see results. This delay quietly cancels the entire process. Reality does not respond to who you plan to be. It responds to who you are being right now. In physics, a system does not shift because of intention alone. It shifts when its present state changes. Identity works the same way. The mirror only reflects what is embodied in the present moment. Living as the chosen identity does not mean dramatic gestures or forced optimism. It means subtle consistency. How you interpret silence. How you respond to delay. How you speak internally when no one is listening. These moments carry far more signal than motivation ever could. So ask yourself, in small, ordinary situations today, who are you rehearsing being? The one waiting for permission, or the one who already knows? The mirror does not need proof. It needs coherence. And coherence is always practiced now, never later. Being always precedes having. There is a principle so simple that the mind often rejects it. Being always comes before having. Most people reverse this order and live in constant tension. I'll feel secure when I have more money. I'll relax when the relationship improves. I'll trust life when results appear. But this logic never resolves because it asks the mirror to move first. In every coherent system, the internal state dictates the outcome. In human experience, your state of being, calm or tense, trusting or defensive, grounded or reactive, sets the conditions under which results can emerge. When identity aligns, desire softens. You stop needing reality to convince you. And paradoxically, that is when reality responds. This is why true creators often appear detached from outcomes. Not indifferent, but internally settled. They are no longer using results to regulate their sense of self. They are being first and allowing having to follow. Ask yourself honestly, what are you waiting to receive before allowing yourself to be at ease, confident, or present? That waiting is the only thing delaying the reflection. When being stabilizes, having becomes inevitable. Secret 2. The patience of the gardener. Once identity shifts, many people expect reality to respond immediately. When it doesn't, doubt creeps in. Maybe nothing changed. Maybe this isn't working. This impatience is not a flaw. It is a misunderstanding of how systems reorganize. In nature, nothing meaningful happens instantly. A seed does not question itself underground. It does not dig itself up to check progress. It remains coherent while invisible processes unfold. This is the patience of the gardener, and it is the second principle of conscious creation. In physics, when initial conditions change, there is always a time delay before observable outcomes stabilize. Reality must rearrange relationships, probabilities, and pathways. That reorganization cannot be rushed. The delay is not absence of movement. It is preparation. Most people abandon their new identity during this phase because external feedback has not caught up yet. But creators understand something crucial. Consistency during the unseen phase is what determines the harvest. So, ask yourself, can you remain loyal to who you are becoming when nothing seems to confirm it yet? That loyalty is not passive. It is active trust. And it is where most transformations either mature or collapse. Why most people quit during the delay? The delay between inner change and external confirmation is where most transformations quietly die. Not because the process failed, but because the person abandoned the new identity too early. When results do not appear on schedule, the old self steps back in with familiar logic. This was unrealistic. I should go back to what I know. In physics, instability occurs when a system oscillates between states instead of allowing a new one to stabilize. Human identity behaves the same way. If you shift internally but keep checking reality for reassurance, you reintroduce contradiction. And contradiction slows reorganization. The delay is not empty time. It is a test of coherence. Are you committed to the identity you chose, or only to the outcomes you expected? Most people unknowingly answer that question by reverting the moment external evidence feels uncomfortable. Creators do something different. They understand that the delay is not a problem to solve but a phase to endure. They stop asking, is this working? And start asking, am I still being consistent? That shift marks the difference between temporary insight and permanent change. Consistency during contradiction creates the turning point. There is a precise moment in every transformation when the old reality argues the loudest. Results appear unchanged. Feedback feels discouraging. Evidence seems to contradict the new identity entirely. This moment is not failure. It is pressure at the boundary of change. In physics, when a system approaches a phase transition, fluctuations increase before stability emerges. Human experience mirrors this law. The contradiction you feel is not proof that the new identity is wrong. It is proof that the system is destabilizing the old pattern. Most people misread this moment and retreat. They interpret contradiction as a warning instead of a signal. But creators recognize it as the turning point. They remain consistent, not emotionally, but structurally. Their reactions stay aligned. Their internal language does not regress. Their presence does not collapse. This is not blind faith. It is disciplined coherence. Consistency during contradiction tells the mirror something unmistakable. This identity is not temporary. And when the mirror receives that signal long enough, it reorganizes. Suddenly, without drama, reality shifts. Not gradually, decisively. And what once felt impossible begins to feel obvious in retrospect. Reality reflects focus, not emotion. One of the most persistent misconceptions in reality creation is the belief that emotion is the primary driver of results. While emotion carries energy, it is not what reality mirrors most faithfully. Focus is. Where attention goes consistently, structure forms. In physics, observation stabilizes certain outcomes over others. In human experience, sustained focus selects what becomes dominant in your life. You can feel hopeful, yet focus on problems. You can feel motivated, yet mentally rehearse obstacles. And reality will reflect the focus, not the mood. This explains why people who constantly analyze what they dislike often recreate it, even when their intentions are positive. Attention is instruction. Whatever you repeatedly examine, explain, and describe becomes familiar to the mirror. Directed focus is not denial. It is selection. You are choosing which aspects of reality deserve repetition and which do not. This choice must be deliberate because the mind defaults to what feels unresolved. Ask yourself, what occupies your focus when nothing urgent is happening? That quiet focus is the blueprint reality is currently reading. Change the focus, and the mirror begins assembling a different structure, slowly, then all at once. Why focusing on problems recreates them? The human mind has a habit that feels responsible but is quietly destructive. It studies problems as if understanding them deeply will dissolve them. But in reality creation, attention is not neutral. Focus is fuel. In physics, energy follows the path of least resistance. In consciousness, attention follows familiarity. When you repeatedly think about what is wrong, what is missing, or what might go wrong, you stabilize those patterns in the mirror. Not because you want them, but because you are keeping them active. This is why some people can articulate their problems with incredible clarity, yet remain stuck for years. They are excellent observers of their own limitation. The mirror simply reflects what receives the most cognitive and emotional rehearsal. Breaking this pattern does not require suppression or denial. It requires redirection. Each time attention returns to the problem, the system is being instructed to preserve it. So, the question becomes uncomfortable but powerful. How much of your mental energy is spent describing what you want to leave versus embodying what you want to build? The mirror does not differentiate. It organizes around repetition, and repetition is chosen moment by moment. How to deliberately shift focus to desired states. If focus shapes reality, then learning to direct it becomes one of the most powerful skills a human being can develop. Yet most people leave their focus on autopilot, pulled by urgency, habit, and unresolved emotion. Directed focus is not wishful thinking. It is disciplined selection. In physics, coherence increases when a system repeatedly reinforces the same signal. In your life, coherence emerges when your attention consistently returns to what you are building, not what you are escaping. This means your internal language matters, not as affirmation, but as orientation. Are you mentally rehearsing solutions or narrating problems? Shifting focus does not mean pretending challenges do not exist. It means refusing to let them dominate your internal landscape. You acknowledge them briefly, respond if necessary, and then return attention to the state you are stabilizing: confidence, clarity, momentum, trust. Ask yourself this: If someone could hear your inner dialogue for a day, would they know what kind of future you are constructing? Or only what you are resisting? Focus is not changed once. It is trained. And every deliberate return strengthens the signal the mirror is learning to reflect. Why simplicity is powerful but never easy. When people hear that focus shapes reality, they often assume the solution should feel effortless. If it's simple, why is it so hard to maintain? The answer is that simplicity challenges habit. And habit is one of the most entrenched forces in human consciousness. Redirecting focus is not complicated, but it is demanding. It requires interrupting automatic thoughts, emotional reflexes, and familiar narratives, sometimes dozens of times a day. In physics, reducing noise in a system increases signal clarity, but removing noise takes energy and intention. The same is true internally. This is why many people abandon conscious focus after initial enthusiasm fades. They mistake repetition for stagnation. But repetition is precisely what trains the system. Each return to clarity strengthens the new pattern. Each lapse, if corrected, still counts as practice. So, the question is not whether you can understand this principle. The question is whether you are willing to practice it when it feels boring, unrewarded, or invisible. Because simplicity does not mean ease. It means precision. And precision, over time, reshapes reality far more reliably than intensity ever could. Secret 4. Breaking the reverse creation cycle. Most people unknowingly live inside what can be called the reverse creation cycle. They look at current reality, form conclusions about who they are, and then act from those conclusions, only to reproduce the same reality again. The loop feels logical, even responsible, but it is backward. In physics, effects never create causes. Yet in human behavior, identity is often shaped by outcomes instead of the other way around. I failed, therefore I am not capable. It hasn't changed, therefore it won't. Each conclusion quietly locks the mirror into repetition. Breaking this cycle requires a conscious reversal. Creators refuse to let present conditions define identity. They understand that current reality is outdated information, feedback from a previous internal state. Responding to it as if it were final only delays change. This is not denial. It is authorship. You acknowledge what exists without allowing it to dictate who you are becoming. The moment identity stops being negotiated with appearances, the reverse cycle collapses. Ask yourself, are you letting yesterday's reflection tell you who you are today? Or are you defining today's identity and allowing the mirror time to respond? That choice determines everything that follows. Creating the next reflection instead of reacting to the current one. The defining difference between those who transform their lives and those who remain stuck is deceptively simple. Creators do not react to the current reflection. They generate the next one. Most people allow present circumstances to dictate their emotional state, their decisions, and ultimately their identity. In doing so, they keep reinforcing what already exists. In physics, reacting to an output never alters the system that produced it. Only a change at the input level can generate a new result. In life, the input is identity. When you emotionally react to what you see, you are confirming it as authoritative. When you remain internally anchored to a different identity, you are issuing a new instruction. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting it correctly. The present moment is feedback, not a verdict. Creators understand that what they see today is the echo of who they were yesterday. The real discipline is this. Can you hold the posture, decisions, and inner tone of the identity you are choosing while the old reflection is still visible? That ability determines whether you remain a reactor or become the author of what appears next. How small confirmations accelerate transformation. As identity stabilizes, reality rarely responds with dramatic events at first. Instead, it offers something quieter, small confirmations. A conversation that opens a door. A delay that resolves itself. A subtle sense of ease where there used to be tension. These moments are easy to dismiss, and that is a critical mistake. In physics, early coherence appears as weak signals before a system fully reorganizes. In life, small confirmations are indicators that alignment is increasing. They are not rewards. They are calibration points. When you notice them, you reinforce the new identity. When you ignore them, you slow the process. Most people wait for undeniable proof before they relax into change. Creators do the opposite. They treat subtle evidence as feedback that the mirror is adjusting. This recognition strengthens internal certainty without forcing outcomes. So, ask yourself, do you acknowledge progress only when it is undeniable, or do you register alignment as soon as it appears? Each small confirmation, when consciously recognized, reduces internal doubt. And reduced doubt allows reality to reorganize faster. Transformation does not accelerate through pressure. It accelerates through recognition. Why synchronicities appear as alignment increases. As internal alignment deepens, many people begin to notice a shift that feels almost uncanny. Events line up. The right information appears at the right time. People enter your life unexpectedly. Opportunities seem to arrive without effort. These moments are often called synchronicities, but they are not random. In physics, when a system becomes coherent, unrelated variables begin to coordinate. Noise decreases. Patterns emerge. In human experience, synchronicities are signs that internal identity and external conditions are no longer in conflict. The mirror is no longer correcting for contradiction, so timing improves naturally. This does not mean life becomes perfect. It means it becomes responsive. You stop forcing connections, and connections begin finding you. You stop pushing outcomes, and pathways open. The danger here is interpretation. Some people see synchronicities as miracles and wait for them to continue. Creators see them as feedback. They understand these moments are signals of alignment, not guarantees of permanence. The real question is not, why is this happening? The question is, what identity is making this possible? Because as long as that identity remains stable, synchronicity is not an exception. It is a pattern. Why application separates creators from observers? Many people encounter these ideas, feel inspired, and even agree with them intellectually, yet nothing changes. This is not because the principles are flawed. It is because understanding does not reorganize identity. Application does. In physics, a theory has no effect on a system unless it is enacted. The same is true here. Conscious reality creation is not about knowing the laws. It is about living in accordance with them consistently, especially when it feels inconvenient. Observers consume insight, analyze patterns, and wait for certainty. Creators practice alignment before certainty appears. They apply the principles when results are small, when doubt is present, and when old habits are tempting. This is what creates momentum. The gap between observer and creator is not effort, it is responsibility. Creators accept that no one else can stabilize their identity for them. They stop waiting for permission from circumstances. So, ask yourself honestly, are you using these ideas to explain your life or to shape it? Because the mirror responds only to what is embodied. Insight that remains theoretical may feel empowering, but it does not alter the reflection. Application does, and always will. The choice between victimhood and authorship. At the deepest level, every life is shaped by a single decision that is made again and again, often unconsciously. Will you relate to reality as a victim or as an author? Victimhood is not weakness. It is a learned posture. It assumes that life happens to you, that circumstances are the cause, and that identity must adapt to what appears. Authorship reverses that posture. It does not deny difficulty, loss, or uncertainty. It simply refuses to grant them creative authority. An author understands that circumstances are effects, not origins. They are information, not identity. In physics, a system that reacts only to external disturbance remains unstable. Stability emerges when internal parameters govern behavior. In human life, authorship is that internal parameter. It is the moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What am I choosing to project now?" This choice is rarely dramatic. It shows up in quiet moments, how you interpret delay, how you respond to silence, how you speak to yourself when nothing is working yet. Every reaction either reinforces victimhood or strengthens authorship. There is no neutral ground. Why reality changes only when the projection changes. One of the most confronting truths in conscious creation is this: reality cannot change unless the internal projection changes first. No amount of effort, optimism, or strategy can bypass this law. External circumstances are not independent variables. They are responses. In physics, a system will continue producing the same output as long as its internal configuration remains unchanged. Human experience follows the same rule. If the self-image, expectations, and emotional baseline stay the same, reality has no new instructions to follow. Change may appear temporarily, but it will not stabilize. This is why many people feel they are doing everything right and still see no lasting shift. They may be acting differently, but they are projecting the same identity underneath. The mirror recognizes identity, not activity. The uncomfortable implication is also the empowering one. Waiting for reality to change before you change is waiting forever. The order cannot be reversed. Projection must lead. Reflection must follow. Ask yourself with precision, if nothing outside you changed for a while, could you still maintain the identity you are choosing? Because the moment that identity becomes non-negotiable, reality begins adjusting quietly, systematically, and without asking permission. The mirror is always waiting for your decision. Everything you have explored up to this point leads to a single, unavoidable conclusion. The mirror is never delayed, confused, or resistant. It is always waiting. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for coherence. Waiting for a stable signal it can reflect without contradiction. Reality is not testing you. It is responding to you. Every experience you encounter is a reply to an identity you have been projecting, consciously or not. And the most important part is this: you do not project identity once. You project it continuously, through your assumptions, reactions, and internal posture. This means the decisive moment is not in the past, and it is not in the future. It is now. Not when circumstances improve. Not when fear disappears. Now, when you decide who stands before the mirror regardless of appearances. So, the final question is not whether change is possible. The question is simple and precise. Which identity will you commit to projecting from this moment forward? Because the mirror has no preference, no judgment, no delay. It will reflect whoever you choose to be next. If this knowledge resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. Like this video to support the work and help it reach those who are ready. Share it with someone who may be standing at the edge of their own transformation. And most importantly, leave a comment below. Which idea shifted your perspective the most today?